Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to jump right in today because we have a really fascinating case study on our hands. Have you ever wondered how massive global corporations navigate the totally chaotic, minute-by-minute news cycle of international trade wars and political rhetoric? Well, today we are going to explain in detail exactly how one pharmaceutical giant is doing just that. We're looking at Piramal Pharma. In an era where global markets can literally swing on a single social media post, Piramal is taking a radically different approach. They are entirely ignoring the geopolitical noise to focus on concrete business fundamentals. Honestly, it's a complete masterclass in strategic patience. Okay, let's dive into this and map out our journey. We'll start by looking at policy over politics, move into their tri-nation network advantage, explore how they're capitalizing on CDMO growth, and wrap up with the real macroeconomic risks they actually care about. Starting right off with Section 1, Policy over Politics. So, recently, US President Donald Trump has made a series of tariff-related comments on social media. Now, typically, this kind of thing sends immediate shockwaves through the highly globalized pharmaceutical industry, right? You get emergency board meetings, rapid strategic pivots, the whole shebang. But Piramal manages a really strict dichotomy here. On one side, you've got the anxiety-inducing world of global trade wars driven by informal announcements and tweets. And on the other side, concrete policy actions. Piramal's leadership simply refuses to react prematurely to that noise on the left. They watch geopolitical developments very closely, for sure, but they will only mobilize their resources and actually adjust supply chains in response to finalized laws on the right. To really understand this incredibly objective stance, listen to this exact quote from Chairperson Nandini Piramal. She says, "I want to focus on the actions on what will happen when it happens, because a lot of things can be tweeted." It's just a brilliantly simple but highly effective philosophy. By weighting her concrete actions, rather than reacting to the daily churn of social media, the company completely avoids wasting their capital and operational energy on scenarios that, honestly, might never even materialize. Moving right along to Section 2, the Tri-Nation Network Advantage. So how exactly can a company afford to be so patient? Well, it comes down to their physical footprint. Piramal's manufacturing is strategically distributed across the United States, the United Kingdom, and India. Let's explain this in detail because this specific tri-nation network provides a massive operational benefit. It essentially acts as a built-in geographic hedge against localized disruptions. If tariffs or trade barriers do actually materialize in one region, Piramal isn't trapped. They have the flexibility to help their customers solve supply chain problems by leveraging their presence in the other two regions. And actually, they are already seeing improved demand for their overseas sites. This proves that having a diversified physical footprint is a really powerful shield against global trade anxieties. A massive part of this strategy relies on their role as a CDMO, that stands for Contract Development and Manufacturing Organization. Essentially, they serve other pharma companies on a contract basis, providing comprehensive end-to-end services from early drug development all the way through to commercial manufacturing. And right now, Piramal is seeing a much healthier pipeline of inquiries here. Thanks to improving biopharma funding, more and more customers want to utilize these exact services, which is really turning this division into a primary growth engine for them. And that brings us to Section 3, capitalizing on CDMO growth. Now, what's really interesting about this is the actual business engine driving their growth. It operates on a critical lag time of 6 to 8 months. To explain this dynamic in detail, while leading indicators in biopharma funding are definitely improving right now, Piramal notes that it's just the new way of the world for things to take a bit longer. Once a customer actually secures their funding, it takes them roughly 6 to 8 months to actually spend that money and initiate the manufacturing contracts. So while the inquiries are flooding in today, the actual revenue realization requires a really calculated patient outlook. The money is absolutely there, but the spending cycle has just elongated. But Piramal is putting their money where their mouth is. For this year, they have committed to a bold capital expenditure, or CAPEX, budget of $125 to $135 million. That is a massive investment. And what it proves is that they are investing heavily in the signal of long-term biopharma demand, rather than freezing up their capital out of fear over the noise of global tariff tweets. So, where exactly is that $125 to $135 million going? Let's ground those abstract numbers into reality for a second. The company's immediate strategy strongly favors expanding their existing businesses rather than going out and making flashy external acquisitions. They are specifically strengthening highly differentiated technical capabilities. We're talking about antibody-drug conjugates, high-potent active pharmaceutical ingredients, sterile injectables, on-patent pharmaceuticals, and peptides. By expanding their existing facilities to handle these highly complex, in-demand areas, they are really cementing their value to their CDMO customers who absolutely rely on these specialized manufacturing processes. Which leads us to our fourth and final section, real macroeconomic risks. Because as optimistic as those growth projections and investments are, we do need to balance the scales. What does a global pharma giant actually consider a real threat? So the crucial point is that it boils down to two primary risks: rising interest rates and external volatility, specifically the West Asia crisis. Nandini Parimal explicitly cautioned that if interest rates rise, it makes biopharma funding much, much more precarious. Think about it. The entire pipeline of those CDMO inquiries we just discussed relies entirely on their customers securing early-stage funding. High interest rates choke off that exact funding. Furthermore, physical volatility in regions like West Asia disrupts actual global logistics. That is a tangible physical threat to a global supply chain, unlike an informal post on social media. And that brings us to a final, critical thought. We've seen how Piramal Pharma systematically filters out the noise to focus on concrete policies, strategic geographic footprints, and massive capability investments. But at the end of the day, they cannot control global macroeconomics. So I want to leave you with this question. How might rising interest rates shape the future of biopharma innovation? If high borrowing costs force companies to delay or even cancel the development of complex new medicines, what are the downstream effects on global healthcare over the next decade? It is a very real, non-political metric that will ultimately decide the pace of life-saving innovation. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And remember, keep focusing on the signal in the noise.